This Egyptian guy has done something few people twice his age would dare to attempt. He built a billion-dollar empire, watched it nearly turn to dust in the public eye, and then sat down in the ruins to piece it back together. Mostafa Kandil stood on the floor of the Nasdaq in New York in 2022, and for a brief window it looked like he had won the game. At just 29 years old, he became one of the youngest CEOs to take a tech company public. Swvl, the brand he started in the back seats of cars in Cairo, was suddenly worth $1.5 billion. It was a massive validation, a signal that a kid from Egypt could build a company that didn't just copy a Western model, but solved a problem the West didn't even have. It was the peak of a vertical climb, a moment where the chaos of Cairo's streets finally met the cold, clinical world of high finance. To understand why he was there, you have to look at the mess Kandil grew up in. Born in Egypt, he didn't start out wanting to be a tech mogul. He studied petroleum engineering at the American University in Cairo. Engineering is about flow, pressure, and systems. While his peers were looking at how to move oil through pipes, Kandil started looking at how to move people through a city. Cairo is a place where movement is a constant struggle. You either pay for a private car you can't afford, or you cram into a public bus that might not show up and definitely won't have air conditioning. At 21, a Google program took him to Ireland, and that was his red pill moment. He saw that technology wasn't some abstract magic. It was a tool to fix things that were broken. He didn't go back to the oil fields. Instead, he became a market launcher. He was a corporate soldier for Rocket Internet in the Philippines, and then for Kareem. He was the guy they sent into a new city with a laptop and a phone, and 48 hours later, a business was running. He launched 8 cities across Turkey, Egypt, and Pakistan. This was his training ground. Typically, he learned how to scale by doing it at a speed that would make most managers quit. In March 2017, he took everything he learned about blitz scaling and applied it to the bus. He launched Swvl with 2 childhood friends. They didn't buy buses. They used technology to organize existing private buses into fixed, reliable routes. It was bus hailing. It gave the middle class a way to commute that was cheaper than a car, but more dignified than a public van. The product was built on the idea that reliability is more important than luxury. What made Swvl distinctive wasn't just the app, it was the data. Kandil built a system that could predict where people needed to go and then mapped out routes that traditional city planners had ignored for decades. He was filling the gaps in the city's bones. The growth was explosive. He moved into Kenya and Pakistan, and soon Swvl was the darling of the region. Even his former bosses at Kareem were so impressed they put $500,000 into the business. However, the climb to the Nasdaq was followed by a brutal fall. Shortly after going public, the world changed. Interest rates went up, tech stocks crashed, and the lingering effects of the pandemic meant that mass transit was no longer the safe bet it seemed to be in 2019. Swvl's stock price didn't just dip, it vanished, losing over 99% of its value. Most founders would have stepped down or let the company go bankrupt. This is where Kandil's engineering mindset took over. He made the hardest decision a founder can make. He tore down what he had built to save the core. He refused to keep burning cash on the B2C side, the individual riders, in markets that weren't profitable. He shut down operations, let go of staff, and shifted the company's entire DNA. He decided to focus on B2B, business to business, and B2G, business to government. Instead of just picking up commuters, Swvl began managing the transit for massive corporations and school systems in Saudi Arabia and Egypt. It was a move away from the hype and toward the profit. By 2023, the strategy worked. He turned a $123 million loss into a $3.1 million net profit. He stopped trying to win the popularity contest and started winning the balance sheet. He focused on dollar-pegged revenue in the Gulf to protect the business from the wild swings of local currencies. He proved that he wasn't just a guy who could launch a rocket. He was a guy who could land one after the engines failed. Kandil's approach to scaling has always been about the operating system of transit. He doesn't want to own the buses. He wants to be the brain that tells the buses where to go. He refused to get distracted by flashy side projects. While other tech companies were trying to become super apps that did everything from laundry to food delivery, Kandil stayed focused on the move. He stuck to the bus because he knew that in emerging markets, mass transit is the only way a city actually functions. If we zoom out and really sit with what Swvl represents, It stops being just another startup success story or ride-booking app from the region. It becomes something more cultural, almost symbolic, a case study in ambition, collapse, survival, and reinvention. Swvl started with a bold, almost disruptive idea: fixed daily transport in crowded cities where traditional systems were broken or inefficient. In places like Cairo, where traffic is chaotic and commuting can eat hours of your life, the concept felt electric. It wasn't just convenience, it was relief. For a moment, Swvl wasn't just a company. It felt like a promise that tech from the Middle East could actually solve real, painful problems at scale. And that early momentum mattered. Because in the startup world, especially coming out of the region, perception is everything. Swvl became one of those rare names that broke through the local startup ceiling. It raised capital, expanded fast, and started to look like it was on a straight line upward. The kind of trajectory people write LinkedIn posts about before the IPO even happens. But here's the part that most stories skip. The line doesn't stay straight. Like many hyper-growth startups, Swvl hit reality. Expansion is expensive. Markets don't behave the same way everywhere. What works in one city doesn't always translate cleanly to another. And suddenly, the very thing that made Swvl exciting, its speed, started becoming its pressure point. Costs rose, expectations rose even faster, and the company found itself in a familiar startup situation. Scaling pain, restructuring, and hard questions about identity. This is where Mostafa Kandil's role becomes interesting, not just as a founder, but as someone forced into evolution. Most people think founders are defined by the launch moment, the pitch deck, the hype cycle, the rocket launch. But the real test comes after the rocket leaves the atmosphere. When things get unstable, when systems fail, when you're no longer admired for starting something, but judged for keeping it alive. Swvl didn't just need growth anymore. It needed recalibration. And recalibration hurts. There's a specific kind of leadership moment where you have to look at the thing you built, the version everyone knows, supports, and celebrates, and accept that it might not survive in its current form. That's not a business decision alone. That's emotional surgery. You're not tweaking a product anymore. You're rewriting identity. Swvl went through that phase. It pulled back from certain markets, restructured operations, and made decisions that would look, from the outside, like setbacks. But internally, it was survival logic. Strip complexity. Focus on sustainability. Stop chasing narrative and start chasing durability. That's the part people often misread as failure, when in reality it's forced maturity. Because Swvl becoming global, moving into places like the UK and the US, isn't just expansion, it's translation. It's taking lessons forged in chaos-heavy environments like Cairo and testing them in structured, competitive Western markets. That's not easy. In fact, it's almost like switching operating systems while the app is still running. But that's also where the edge comes from. Companies that survive turbulence early don't just become stable, they become adaptive. They stop assuming the world will bend to their model. Instead, they learn to rebuild the model depending on the world. And Mostafa Kandil's evolution fits into that shift too. He's no longer just the founder who pushes growth at any cost. He's operating more like someone who understands cycles. When to expand, when to contract, when to rebuild quietly. That's a very different kind of skill set. Less rocket fuel, more engineering discipline. What makes Swvl's story stand out culturally is exactly this contradiction. It was born in hype, tested in volatility, and is now being shaped by restraint. And maybe the most important takeaway is this. Resilience in startups is often misunderstood. People think it means don't break, but in reality it means know what to break on purpose so you don't collapse by accident. Swvl didn't avoid impact, it absorbed it. And instead of disappearing, it adapted. So when you look at it today, still moving, still expanding, still rebuilding identity across markets, you're not just seeing a company that survived. You're seeing a company that learned how to continue after the narrative stopped being glamorous. And that's the real shift. Not just going up, but learning how to exist after the fall and still choosing to move forward anyway.